gracious God. Get off my mind. He'll fix it.
Yes, he will.
How many out there know that he will fix it? I know I'm a witness. I know he will. Yes, sir. Oh.
Come on now. Come on now.
I know the Lord will fix it. Yes, sir. For you. Thank you. Thank you, Lord. I think I'll say that one more time. I know the Lord will fix it. Yes, sir. For you. Thank you, Jesus. Thank you. I will just hold to his hand and live by his command. I know the Lord will fix it for you. Thank you, Jesus. Thank you, Lord. Sometimes I'm up, sometimes I'm down. Yes, sir. Almost never to the ground. I know the Lord will fix it for you. Thank you, thank you, Lord. Mother used to call us round the bed. These are the words I used to hear my mother say. I know the Lord will fix it for you. Thank you, Jesus. Thank you, Lord. Sometimes I have to cry, and I don't know the reason why. And I know the Lord will fix it for you. Thank you, thank you, Jesus. Listen, he'll fix it. He'll fix it. I know he will, y'all. He'll fix it. Try to know. He'll fix it. I know he will. He'll fix it. He fixed it for my mother. He'll fix it. He fixed it for my father. He'll fix it. When I didn't have much food on the table. He'll fix it. I know he'll fix it, y'all. He'll fix it. Have you tried? He'll fix it. Have you tried? He'll fix it. He'll be your doctor. He'll fix it. He'll be your lawyer. He'll fix it. He'll be everything for you. He'll fix it. Sometimes in the midnight hour, he'll fix it. And all the children go to sleep. Y'all know what I do? He'll fix it. I steal away. He'll fix it. And get all by myself. Then I go down on my knees. I said, Lord, you've been good to me. You woke me up early this morning. And you started me on my way. You've been good to me, Jesus. You've been everything to me, everything for me. Been God good. He brought me home. All I know. He brought me all over. Thank you, Jesus. Thank you, Jesus. You've been good to me. Why has it been good to y'all? Let me see you wave your hand. Jesus, my doctor. You've been my lawyer. Mother been gone. He's been a mother for me. I just want to thank you, Jesus. I'm gonna leave this thing alone. Don't ever this morning. Starting on a brand new day. Thank you, Jesus. Thank you, Jesus. Thank you, Jesus. Thank you for my health and my strength. You brought me from a mighty long way. Look at me now. God is good to me. I'm gonna leave it alone. Lord, I know that God will fix it for
Ghost. I believe in miracles. I got faith. I believe. God said it. I believe. I believe He's coming back. I believe He's coming back. I said it. I believe. I believe in miracles. I believe in the Holy Ghost. God said, I believe. My God said it. I believe. I believe in the healing, y'all. I believe in the healing, y'all. No more breaks, y'all. No more breaks, y'all. God said it. I believe. God said, I believe. My God said it. I believe. God said, I believe. I believe in the Holy Ghost. I believe in the miracles. I believe in the healing, y'all. I believe. My God said it. I believe. What God would do, I believe in the Holy Ghost. I believe in the Holy Ghost. I believe in the miracles. I believe in the healing, y'all. I believe. I believe in miracles. I believe in the Holy Ghost. I believe He's coming back. I believe He's coming back. I believe in the healing, y'all. I believe in the healing, y'all. God said, I believe. God said, I believe. My God said, I believe. I believe. I believe. I believe. I believe. I believe in Him. I believe in Him, y'all. God said, I believe. Don't go back, y'all. Don't go back, y'all. God said it. I believe. Don't go white, don't go heavy, y'all. I believe. He's coming back again. God said it. Woo! I believe. God said it. I believe. I believe in the Holy Ghost. I believe in the Spirit. I believe in the healing, y'all. God said it. I believe. I believe. My God said it. I believe. He said in the word, God, it shall be given. I believe. Oh, no diabetes, y'all. I believe. Oh, no heart disease. I believe. Oh, high blood pressure. I believe. Nothing but the healing, y'all. I believe. God said it. God said it. God said it. God said it. My God said it. I believe. I believe. I believe. I believe in miracles. I believe in miracles. I believe in miracles. I believe in healing, y'all. God said, I believe. I believe in healing, y'all. I believe in the healing, y'all. I believe in the Holy Ghost. I believe in the Holy Ghost. I believe He's coming back. I believe He's coming back. I know He's coming back. He said His word. And He said His image. God loves me. No heartache. No pain. No mountain, y'all. I believe. I believe. I believe. God said. I believe. My God said it. I believe. I'm gonna thank Him that His word. I go. Do anybody believe Him? Do anybody believe Him? Stand up on your feet if you believe Him. God said, I believe Him. How many of you know God said you healed, you healed? How many of you know God said you delivered? Hallelujah. Hallelujah. The spirit of deliverance is in this place. Hallelujah. Hallelujah.
rise to our feet, please, as we lift these verses. The Bible says, getting at verse number 21. He said unto them, how is it that you do not understand? And he cometh to Bethsaida. And they bring a blind man unto him, and besought him that he to touch him. And he took the blind man by the hand, and led him out of the town. And when he had spit on his eyes, he put his hand upon him, and asked him if he saw aught. He looked up and said, I see men as trees walking. After that he put his hands again upon his eyes and made him look up. And he was restored and saw every man clearly. And he sent him away to his house, saying, neither go into the town, nor tell it to any in the town. And Jesus went out, and his disciples, into the towns of Caesarea Philippi. And by the way, he asked his disciples, saying, unto them, whom do men say that I am? They answered, John the Baptist. Some say Elias, and others one of the prophets. And he said unto them, but whom say ye that I am? And Peter answered and said unto him, thou art Christ. I'll stop there. I said to him, thou art the Christ.
Amen.
I want to talk to us today about distorted vision. They bring a blind man unto him and besought him to touch him. And he took the blind man by the hand, led him out of the town. And when he had spit on his eyes and put his hand upon him, he asked him if he saw aught. He looked up, said, I see men as trees walking. After that he put his hands again on his eyes and made him look up. And he was restored, and saw every man clearly.
Yeah.
And he sent him away to his house, saying, either go into the town, nor tell it to any in the town. I want to talk to us about distorted vision. Distorted vision. Unclear vision.
Yes.
Untrue vision, because when vision is distorted, you don't find it in its absoluteness.
All right now.
You find it in bits and pieces.
Yeah.
In fact, distorted vision kind of reminds us of possibility.
Yeah.
It says to us, I'm seeing it, but I'm not seeing it as it really is.
Yeah.
That's the way people see us from time to time. They see us, but they don't see us as we really are. Mark, the young man who had followed Jesus for quite some time, carries us on this spiritual and mental excursion with the Lord.
Yes.
It seems simple because we read what the Lord is doing here in this passage. But we've also read the many great things he's done in the past, such as raising Lazarus from the dead, such as feeding 5,000 men, not counting women and children, with 5 loaves and 2 fish. We've seen him do things such as call a dead man by name, and he comes walking out of the grave, a man named Lazarus. So many things we've seen by the Lord that it might make him feeding these people with such a small amount that it doesn't have an impact on our thinking as it relates to the positive and powerfulness of our Lord. But when one examines this particular passage, he takes us and engages us from another mental perspective as well as the spiritual. It allows us once again to take a visit with Jesus. It allows us to look inside not just of his power, but also of his character. Jesus always had the power, but one could question the character. There are a whole lot of people in powerful positions, but do not always have the character to do the right thing. I could call one now, but I won't call President Trump by name. Here our Lord is,
Yes, sir.
giving us another incident
Yes, sir.
that our faith in him might be strengthened.
Yeah.
The Lord has done many great things already,
Yes, sir.
and he's done so much that expectations of multitude has been lifted from doubt to expectation.
Yeah.
And I don't know how long each of us have been in this relationship with Jesus Christ, but how many of us have had a rise in expectation when we bow in prayer?
That's right.
We have seen him do so much for others, and we've experienced him doing so much for us, that we've almost come to the place where our faith and trust in him has now become more expectation. We expect the Lord to respond.
Yeah.
Because he's done so much for us so many times before. But here he is in his early ministry.
Yeah.
That we take a moment to go back and visit this Christ. Now look at this particular chapter. Coming to this little town called Beulah. Notice there's a semicolon there. It holds the sentence up for just a moment. As he sets foot in Bethsaida, immediately, the Bible doesn't say immediately, but this semicolon just kind of separates it. And they bring a blind man unto him and besought him, asked him, begged him to touch him. Listen, they didn't say heal him.
Yeah.
They said to touch him.
Yeah.
That's a good point.
They understood the power of the master's touch.
All right. All right.
They understood that a touch from the Lord could make all things possible.
Yeah.
They had come to believe in him so that they believed that just a touch of his hand was able to handle whatever our situation might have been in the moment.
Yeah.
They brought a blind man to him.
Yeah.
And they wanted him to touch him. Took the blind man. Jesus didn't just touch him, but he took the blind man by the hand.
Yeah.
You see, there's a difference in touching and taking by the hand.
Yeah.
I have a lot of folk, often I walk up and put my hand on their shoulders. That's a touch.
Yeah.
But it's a difference when I grip the hand, pull them in, and hug them.
Yeah.
That's another level. That's a deeper innuendo. It says more than just a touch. So what they're saying is just a touch of the master's hand is all that is needed. He doesn't have to embrace him. He doesn't have to give him that man shake, that serious, strong man shake to say, this is another man holding your hand. This is nothing feminine in me. You know, that dead fish handshake. I'd rather you not touch me than to hold your hand like this. Either shake it or not. They didn't ask the Lord to grab him by the hand. They just wanted him to touch him. Because they know the residue of the Spirit in Jesus was enough to heal this man. Now, this faith didn't just come overnight. The reputation of the Lord has traveled from one place to the other. They'd heard of the dead being raised. They've heard of the lame being able to walk.
That's right.
They've heard of multitudes being fed out of a little boy's box lunch. 2 fish and 5 barley loaves, 5 biscuits and 2 fish. More than 5,000 men, not counting women and children. Surely, if the Lord can do that with 2 biscuits and a couple of fish, surely his touch is enough to take care of this situation. So they don't bother him to hold him up long. Just brush him, just touch him. That'll be enough to give him back his sight. Lord, no doubt looks at the man. And he took the blind man by the hand. Didn't ask him to do this. But this is the care of the master. I have enough time to let you know that I care. See, instead of brushing, instead of touching him, he draws him near. He wants the man to feel his presence with more than a touch. This is not a passerby mentality that the Lord has. When he comes to see you, he takes time with you. When you call on him, he's there to hear what you have to say. He doesn't just exert his authority, but he shares his feelings with you. He says, I love you enough to touch you. I love you enough to take you in my arms. I love you enough to lay my hands on you. I'm not going to just brush you like I'm passing by. But I want you to know that this is a genuine touch. This is a feeling of my love for you. I'm going to touch you. I'm going to grab you by the hand. I want you to know that you have your hands in the hand of the master.
All right now.
This is not a passerby situation.
Yeah.
I don't want to brush it. If I brush it, you just might forget. But if I touch it, it's a touch you'll never forget. It's like the day you got saved, the day you accepted Jesus Christ as Savior. For those of us who are Christians, when you accept Him as Savior, you can almost go back to the day and the time that you accepted Him as Lord.
Yeah.
Because there was a touch, not just you reaching out to Him saying, Lord, I'm yours, but Him responding and telling you, you're now mine. You've been born again. You're in my arms. You're in my care. You're under my watch. This man, they just wanted him to touch him. The Lord took the man by the hand, led him out of the town. He spit on his eye.
Yeah.
Now, how many of us want somebody spitting on our eye? This is Jesus. He spit on his eye.
Yeah.
And put his hands upon him and asked him if he saw it. He looked up and said, I see men as trees walking. The healing is not complete, but he's already seeing. That's the way the new Christian is. They don't know exactly, Brother Charles, where they're going. They don't know the whole route. They don't know where they're going to wind up in the faith. They don't have a clue of where the Lord is going to see that they are planted. All they know is I'm born again.
Yes, sir.
That something is taking place in me now. This man sees, but he doesn't see clearly. And that happens, I want to park here for just a moment, because that happens even in the church today. We don't always see clearly. We see in part, we see pieces, we see cloudiness. But the clarity of this relationship with Jesus is something that has to come through for us to get the full benefit of being in it. None of us really want to settle for a partial relationship with it.
All right.
We don't want that spare time mentality. When I need him, I'll call him. Well, I'd be calling all day, every day, because I need him for every breath.
All right.
Because he gives us every breath. That's how much he cares about us. He's in charge of every breath we breathe.
Yes, he is.
So I don't want a part-time relationship.
Amen.
Philippi, by the way he saw and asked his disciples, said unto them, whom do men say that I am? They answered, John the Baptist. Some say Elias. Others, one of the prophets. But what he wants to know from us is the same thing he wants to know from them.
Yes, sir.
But whom say ye that I am? Who is he to us? It's one thing to talk about a blind man who could not see, and Jesus spit on his eyes and asked him, what do you see? What do you see? I see men as trees walking. He's not fully healed yet. But at least he sees something. Our relationship with the Lord doesn't end after we come into the church.
and we are baptized, it begins.
Yeah.
We've taken the first step toward our salvation. This man has taken the first step in his relationship, this brand new relationship with the Lord. So he starts out seeing men as trees walking, but when Jesus takes him out, spends some time with him, next time he asked him, man sees clearly. He asked his disciples, what are people saying? What's the outside crowd saying? Well, they're calling him one of the prophets. They have a great respect for you. Well, so much for what they are saying. But whom say ye that I am?
All right.
And I'm finishing up here with this.
All right.
Whom say ye that I am? We've seen the miracles of the Lord,
Uh-huh.
even in our own lifetime. You're looking at more. I'm looking at miracles every time I look at one of you, because every one of us, or none of us, had to make it from our houses to the church.
Yeah.
Not to the assembly of the church, rather. To 613, 6 we didn't have to make it here. But because of the goodness of God, and the miraculous work that God does every day. You see, it's a miracle every day that we're still breathing. Because some of us have been in enough mess to drown us, and God brought us through it.
All right, now you preaching.
We've sunk so low and done so much to each other and said so much about each other and run each other down. And we're supposed to be Christians, and yet God let us get back the next Sunday.
All right.
With our low down says, God let us get back the next Sunday. And I've talked about you, you've talked about me, we've talked about one another all week long, and get to church with our hypocritical selves smiling in one another's face.
Yeah. All right now. You preaching.
Now look at you, know you're lying. But a smile back anyhow.
Yeah.
And some of y'all the same way. You know who your friends really are. But what Jesus does here, Jesus takes the man really out of the picture in some ways. He doesn't hold anything against the man. He's blind. That's what Jesus' concern is. See, Jesus is concerned about what he needs to fix about us. Because the problem is not too big for him. He's concerned about where we are at the moment. Because the problem is not too big for him. He's concerned about where our minds are when our bodies are in his house. It's not too big for him. He's concerned about the spirit that controls us, even in his house. And especially when we leave his house. He's concerned about who we are every day. Might not be blind. I might not see men as trees walking, but I've got some other issues that only the Lord can deal with. I've gone to some places spiritually, mentally, and sometimes even physically, where the children of God had no business. Because we didn't go for the right purpose. If we go for the right purpose, we've got business wherever we go. But when we go out of purpose, then we're out of his will. But this blind man has a serious problem. He's blind, and the Lord spits, winds his eyes, and says, what is, I see men as trees walking. Sometimes the problem is not what we see, is how we see it. If he'd have just stopped and said, I see men, that would have been one thing. But he said, I see men as trees walking. He saw them bigger than they were. And he saw them doing what trees had no business doing. God sees us as we are. But he also sees us doing what we have no business doing. We cannot hide from him. There is no hiding place. And often because we're seeking to hide from him, we find ourselves with distorted vision about those around us. Instead of us staying close to him and trusting in him, we begin to draw conclusions about others around us because we begin to understand where we are, that we are not all we should be. And so we begin to try and figure out how to deal with other folk before we deal with us. And I think sometimes that I'm so deeply caught up in my stuff that my only release is to look at somebody else and compare their stuff to my stuff. And if their stuff is worse than my stuff, I feel a little bit better about where I am. That's the problem in the church, is that if your stuff is worse than my stuff, I'm better than so-and-so. But God don't care about us being better than so-and-so. God cares about us being what he designed us to be. God cares about us walking in the path that he's prepared for us to walk and has prepared us to walk. He's concerned about his purpose for our lives more than we're concerned about what we want to do. We have to always be concerned about what God has called us to do. God had a purpose for the blind man. He would not have shown up had he not had a purpose. He catches the man while he's blind. The man has tried to gain his sight, but without any kind of success. But the Lord shows up where the man is, and he begins to talk to the man. I hear him now as he said, but whom, as he asked the brethren, whom say ye that I am? But he goes on and he deals here with this man, and he charged them that they should tell no man of him. But as he deals with the blind man, he causes the blind man to be able to see. He stops the blind man from seeing men as trees walking. And I want to tell you, there are some things that the Lord wants to do in our lives, because day by day we begin to step in one wrong path to another. But this is Jesus calling us to a higher calling, because we're not our own representatives. He has called us out of the world in order to represent him. He has called us, yes, to be representatives of heaven. He has called us from our wicked ways into the Christian walk and the Christian warfare. He has called us and promoted us to go in and tear up the kingdom of hell and restore the kingdom of heaven in this world. We got to see clearly in order to understand the Lord's purpose for our lives. We got to look straight ahead and know that we're looking in the right direction. And every once in a while, We have to talk to the Lord about the vision that's taking place in our minds, that we might stay the course that the Lord has called us to walk, that we might talk the talk that the Lord has called us to talk, that we might do the thing that the Lord has called us to do. What do you see? I see men as trees walking. Well, let me tell you, there's a distorted vision. Come here and let me redo you. God wants to redo us when we're going in the wrong direction. God wants to take us to another place that we might represent Him well. God wants to use us for the cause of His divine glory. God wants to pick us up and turn us around, that the world might see the power of the living God. I want to tell you, when you walk in the power of God, God has a way of allowing you to shine. When you walk in His authority, God has a way of lifting you up. You no longer see men as trees walking. You see them as they are. That's what He wants from us. He wants us to see them as they are. And then He wants to show us where they should be, where they need to be. And then the church, the ecclesia, that's us, the called out. He wants to be able to use us, that we might bring them to where they need to be. But if I'm a clown, I can't help another clown. God wants saints in His church. God wants born again folk who love other folk, so that we can help. It's hard to help somebody if you can't love them. It's hard to receive from somebody that you can't stand. Don't matter how right it is and how clear and clean it is. If you hate the deliverer, you can't receive the message. But you can't love God either and hate your brother.